Hi, folks. So my name is Russ Short. I'll be conducting this short webinar. It's only going to take probably about 45 minutes to an hour. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us. We got, I think, about 3 or 4 people joining from Singapore, and I think about 4 people joining from Moscow. So we'll just give them another 5 minutes to figure out what 1300 UTC is. Fortunately, we got a lot of people that misunderstand the time and simply unable to calculate it. I think that's the first test, whether you want to or can be a pilot, be able to calculate and understand what a UTC time is. So great job to all of you guys for figuring that out correctly and joining us in the correct time. But we'll give them another 5 minutes. We're supposed to have about 12 participants today. Now, guys, we're going to do just a short presentation explanation about the program to make sure everybody's on the same page. Once we're done with that, you'll be able to unmute yourself. So right now, if you're not muted, please go ahead and mute yourself. And we'll be conducting a short Q&A after the short presentation. So first presentation, if you have any questions, you can actually send them in a form of a message. But the best thing to do is just write down whatever you have questions about. Have a little piece of paper with you. And then once we're done, just ask them during the Q&A, okay? All right, so let's give them a few more minutes and we'll get on with the program. Now this seminar, we have another webinar on the 30th of June, that's in a couple of days. And that's a webinar specifically for students who want to join the program, but they're coming from India. And the difference, the reason why we have a slightly different program for the Indian students is because we basically try to optimize it in such a way that those students have maximum chances of getting a visa. And now, Canadian visa is not that hard to get, but it's a combination of things like when the Canadian consulate sees that you're planning to go to Canada and you don't really have any specific reason to come back to India, they suspect you're going to stay there. So the point of the FPAP-C program, so which is specifically for Indian cadets, is to ensure that that question is addressed. And we have Hercules Aviation, which you probably saw just recently, working with us very hard to ensure that students from India get the ground school, DGCA ground school completed, and provide them with a packet of documents that are supporting their claim that they're coming back to India. Now, whether or not they're coming back or not, that's obviously up to them. But the problem with Canada is the fact that it's very easy to stay there and get permanent residency. And of course, Canadian government wants qualified applicants, but the consulate's task is to ensure that they only admit to Canada people who have intent to go back, intent to leave after training. So that's been addressed by Hercules Aviation, and that's where we have another seminar on the 30th. So those of you guys that are from India, please go ahead and join us. Probably be conducted around the same time, 1300 UTC. Okay, well, looks like the other 6 or 7 participants kind of missed their time frame. We're just going to go ahead and move ahead with a short presentation. We might have some other people joining us slightly later. As I said before, just hold your questions until we're done with the presentation, okay? Hi, folks. Mr. Jim Carroll is not going to be joining us today. He is the CEO of Global Air. Okay. Now, this is a short video. I know that it doesn't play on many computers, so just let it play it out. I'm also if you can't hear it, that's okay. I'm just basically addressing you guys and do our best in a short speech here.
to ensure that you
that just addresses the
most comprehensive and most integrated programs,
the work ethics and the point of the program, and the fact that we just want you guys to get into you know, a cockpit of a modern airline as soon as possible.
You understand all the
So play it out.
Please take your time and visit
AeroCadet.com. And we'll continue right after the video.
For more information,
so you can go ahead and contact me for any questions at Ross@AeroCadet.com.
Thank you so much for your attention.
I've been with AeroCadet since 2012.
And welcome aboard.
And we've trained hundreds of students who are successfully placed with quite a few airlines, particularly in the Middle East. Okay, so let's talk about the point of the program. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to let you know that we have this program to ensure that you guys are carried from the flight training. By the time you finish the flight training, when you have 200, 250 hours, and the CPL license is a very, very hard transitional time for a lot of students and a lot of pilots. And the problem with that is very simple. You just can't find a job, right? So you just spent $75,000 on your flight training, and you were unable to find a job. You're sitting there at home, your currency, your aeronautical experience is running out. This is the worst time for a lot of pilots. So we are trying to ensure, and the point of the program is to ensure that this doesn't happen to you. You're not one of those guys that train US or train Canada, spent so much money on the training, and then came back to wherever country you're from, and you're just sitting there without employment. And it's devastating, not only because you spent so much money, but because you just want to go and fly. You know, it's about we're aviation enthusiasts, and it sucks sitting at home and not be able to find a job. And what's even worse, that your currency as a pilot will gradually run out. Okay, and a lot of job applications out there, even if there is a job, all of a sudden the employer wants to employ a low-time commercial pilot, he'll probably wonder what was the last time you flew an aircraft. And if it's more than 6 months ago, then guess what? He may not want you, right? So I want to make sure you guys are avoiding that through integration of flight training and internship. So I want to make sure you guys got a job offer immediately after completion of your flight training. You were able to start building your flight time. That's what's really important, right? Once you start building your flight time and get to the experience that airlines really want. And we'll talk about it in just a second. We'll talk about what airlines really want from you guys. All right. Okay, well, let's just look about pilot outlook really quickly. As you can see, we have a tremendous demand for pilots. And of course, right now, a lot of people are asking about COVID-19, how's this going to affect things? Oh, absolutely, it will affect things, but we believe for next 12 months or so. Okay, so next 12 months, probably will be some furloughs. Will be some people that will be left without a job. But it's only going to be valid until a vaccine is introduced. We have a very good idea, better idea than we have right now, what the mortality rate is. And of course, whether or not a reliable medication is introduced in the market. Right now, all indicators are showing 12 to 18 months. So by the time you guys are done with your flight training, this should not be a factor at all. In fact, we believe that the world travel demand is going to jump back into its nominal value before COVID-19 and even increase. So these numbers we have right now for demand for pilots in Asia and Middle East, very valid. And those are numbers that are showing demand. So approximately 50% of it is deficit. So we believe there's a very good chance that it will be even higher than before. Okay. So right now we're looking at this, and we're seeing that you guys should be absolutely fine without a problem. Just remember that it takes about 12 to 18 months in Canada to finish your flight training, then another 18 months to build time as flight instructor, okay, and get your ATP. So that's already 3 years, okay, and then probably another 12 months as a minimum to build time as a jet pilot with the regional airline. So by the time you guys are done and ready to enter the aviation market, COVID-19 should not be a factor at all. Let's just talk about potential earnings. It's just that as an example, how much money you can make. You can take a look at those numbers. They're pretty nice. Of course, those of you that come from India perhaps may or may not have that in your country. But again, just remember that everybody who's got Canadian ATP has a huge variety of employment options, especially Middle East. A lot of guys work, girls as well, work in Emirates, Fly Dubai, Qatar, and have really high salaries, as well as Asia, countries like Cathay Pacific, companies like Cathay Pacific, AHK, and so on and so forth. They have great employment opportunities for international contract pilots. And of course, Canada, those of you who want to stay in Canada will have this opportunity. And Canada is a country that starts you out at fairly low salary as a first officer on a CRJ 200, but you can get up to over $30,000 flying a wide body for AeroCadet. So all those things are quite possible. And we estimate airline pilots make as much as $10 million throughout the career. So if you're thinking, is it worth investing $65,000 for that training? Absolutely. We believe that it's absolutely worth investing. So let's talk about the airline requirements. So why is it that there is a gap between the experience you get from flight school and the airline requirements, and how to overcome this gap? And that's the whole point of this program, to figure out, to give you an opportunity to overcome this gap, because the airline requirements are set at 100, let's say, it's called 100%. And by the time you finish your flight school, you only got about 7%. So how do you breach that gap, right? This is how people end up unemployed after flight training. So airline requirements, in this case, we're going to talk about probably the biggest and the main target of most of our graduates. That's Emirates, and this is the experience that, for example, Emirates requires full ICAO or ATPL. And just to be clear, ICAO is any country that's part of International Civil Aviation Organization. So Canada, for instance, is one of them. And of course, FAA, et cetera, et cetera. So Canadian license, FAA license, US license, et cetera, the all ICAO licenses. Just to be clear, it's not a separate license. It's the same license. So they prefer ATP from English-speaking countries such as US, Canada, Australia, UK, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it important? Because A, if you studied there, that means your English is really, really good. And B, it also means that those countries are pretty much uncorruptible. It's impossible to bribe anyone in those countries to get you through a flight test, for example. And I'm sure you all know that it's not the case with a lot of countries, in a lot of developing countries, where you can pay and get through a flight test. And I personally experienced that when I worked as a chief flight instructor in Indonesia. So I can tell you for sure that, for example, Indonesian ATP is not going to be as valued for employment in those airlines as ATP from Canada or US. Now, in terms of aeronautical experience, a lot of those airlines want you to have over 1,500 hours of total flight time. And just to be clear, you finish your flight training with about 200, 250 hours. So that's quite a jump, right? They also want you to have over 1,000 hours on turbine aircraft. So it's a jet aircraft or aircraft that is powered by turbine engine. Turboprop counts as a turbine aircraft. So for example, ATR 42 or 72 would count as a turbine aircraft. And those airlines want you to have experience flying aircraft with maximum takeoff weight, MTO's maximum takeoff weight, over 20 tons. And they actually prefer over 30 tons, but 20 tons is okay. So those are requirements for example, Emirates, which is the target airline. And we're going to explain to you how you can get to Emirates as a target airline after completion of the program. Okay. In fact, we're going to give you not just those qualifications, we're going to give you more qualifications than that. So you should be able to beat the competition very easily. And of course, other first officer requirements like age, no criminal history, and stuff like that. Those are all things that you might consider. Now let's talk about program objectives. We want you to get your license. under the, your license is going to be issued by Transport Canada. It used to be called CAA, Civil Aviation Authority of Canada, Canadian Aviation Authority. When it says, did you say India, it's for Indian applicants. So if you're not from India, disregard that. Sorry, guys, we got one more guy that wants to join. Okay, so it's going to get you the license, the ATP, full airline transfer pilot license. It's going to give you an opportunity to build significant flight time on piston and jet aircraft. It's going to give you an opportunity to become airline employment ready with a lot of airlines, not just in the Middle East, but of course in Canada, Asia, et cetera, and provide you with continuous consulting support, something that you need for your career development. So if you have any questions, if you see a direction that is going to be better for you at this time, you'll be able to benefit from our consulting experience and get an advice that you need, including interviews and stuff like that. Okay, so what are the main points of the program? So you're going to get the Transport Canada ATPL, okay? When it says DGCA, again, that's just for those of you who come from India. We actually have a lot of Indian applicants. That's why we talk about India a lot. So if you're not from there, I do apologize, but we just have probably about 70-75% are from India. So obviously a huge market, and we're quite happy to attend to it. And so you're going to get Transport Canada ATPL, over 2,500 hours of flight time. That's by the end of the program is done, by the time you're done with it. Over 1,000 hours on a jet as a first officer, okay? And the jet normally is over, we empty over 20 tons. We have airline employment support in Middle East and Asia, and you'll have airline employment opportunities in Canada. Canada also has reciprocity agreement with the FAA, which means that if you want to convert your Transport Canada ATP to the FAA, which is the US, you can do so, and it only costs $250. So you don't need to take a practical exam. It's just a written exam. It's just an airwheel exam. So it's the only country that has reciprocity agreement for conversion. So you can convert it very quickly, and you can get 2 ATPs. Imagine how great it's going to look at your resume. Yeah, you can have Canadian and US ATPL. And of course, the final thing is PR, permanent residence opportunity in Canada. If those are interested in that, we'll talk about that right after we're finished here. Okay. All right, we'll just talk about landing. So those of you that looking for financing, those of you who don't look for financing, you can just disregard these sections, just a couple of slides to ensure that those of you who are looking for financing can understand the financing options here. Okay, so what are the common financing options? So obviously using personal or parents' funds is something that probably say 80 to 85% of students do. Their parents just pay for that, and that's fine. You can also get a student loan from a local bank in your country. You can get a student loan from US Bank if you have a co-signer. You can use a personal sponsor. You can use government organization to sponsor your training. And you can use a business as a sponsor, so a company sponsor training. And for those who seen the options outlined in blue, we actually provide a package called SLAS Package. And it's specifically designated, specifically designed to demonstrate to a potential sponsor or a bank that you're fit to become a pilot. We accepted you. We think you're going to be great candidates. And we also absolutely guarantee employment after completion. Of course, it's conditional guarantee. You have to achieve certain performance standards, but we guarantee that. So for the bank who's looking to get the money back eventually, it's an important factor. So we had a lot of success, a lot of students from different countries, different developing countries as well. And it's a very, very valuable tool in your search for financing. So if you do need that, here's the SLAS, here's the package. So what's in it? You have official acceptance letter signed by expert consultants. You have pilot career suitability report from AeroCadet with the aptitude test. And it's a test that we require you take before obviously we issue the package. You have flight training and internship contract, and we're talking about guarantees. That's what guarantees for employment is going to be right there. You'll have a letter from Global Air Holdings in Hong Kong with post-graduation guarantee of employment as well. And of course, you have little knickknacks like pilot linear, but it's not really important for the purpose of that package. So those documents normally help a lot with convincing the bank organization or government organization to sponsor your training. Okay. Now, if you do have a relative or a friend in the United States who is able to co-sign for you basically to get a loan, you may be able to use that person. Now, just remember that's US only. So if you do have such a relative, then you have to transition to our FPAP-C program, which is the US program, because if you get financing from US, it cannot be used for training in Canada. So just bear this in mind and consider that as an option. All right, so let's talk about how the program works. Okay. Okay, so phase one has got several phases. Okay, we're going to go phase by phase enrollment. And what do you need for enrollment? You need IELTS academic with a score of 6.0 overall score. Okay, now if you guys are attending the seminar understand what I'm saying, I'm sure you can get more than that. Okay, because it's pretty basic. 6.0 academic IELTS is pretty basic, but it's a great test. So if you are looking to enroll soon, make sure you book it as soon as possible. Pass it. Just make sure it's academic. There's also IELTS general, so make sure it's academic. What you do is have certificate of secondary education, so it's high school diploma, or in the UK or India it's called O levels. So if you got that, make sure that you have that scanned as well. Obviously, full international passport, 2 years plus. You know, the expiration cannot be less than 2 years, otherwise it's going to be rejected by the Canadian consulate. Health standards, we're going to talk about health standards once we've finished with that. The health standards for Canadian Medical Class 1 are mentioned on a website. If you go to a website, aerocadet.com, and click on Enrollment tab, you'll see the requirements there for health standards. And there's a list of things that you have to, the criteria which you have to meet in order to get the Class 1 medical in Canada. And they're very simple. They're actually not that complicated as a lot of people think. So just check them out. If you're not sure if you can get it or not, just print them out, take them to your local clinic, and get everything checked out in accordance with, get your doctor to go point by point with blood pressure, urine samples, stuff like that. Make sure that everything checks out. If everything's checked out by your doctor and it's in accordance with the requirements we have published on our website, we're pretty much guarantee you're going to pass the medical in Canada. So if you're worried about it, get yourself checked out. If you're not worried about it, you're okay, you're a healthy person, nothing to worry about. It's a very simple medical. All right. Okay, so you'll need to take an online pilot aptitude test. Now, it's very simple. It's just an IQ test. Now, this is just for your protection. We're not trying to weed out people who are unable to be pilots or anything like that. It's not for that purpose. It's just that majority of people score average. If you score average, it's fine. If you score below average or way below average, would recommend that you get more funding for your flight training. It doesn't mean that we're not going to let you attend flight training. We still will let you attend flight training, but we might recommend that you get maybe another 10 or 15% more in funding, just in case. And it's based on our experience, just in case you need additional training. Okay, so it's not for our benefits, for your benefits, to ensure that you're properly equipped to go through the program. Okay, and of course the financial requirements. You'll need to have about $65,000 in your bank account or your sponsor's bank account, and that's pretty much universal for the program. So if you have less than that, the chances that your visa might get rejected. So we want to make sure you guys have that. Now, you can have that sum not in one account, but maybe several accounts. Let's say if you're parents are sponsoring you and your uncle or something like that, that's okay. It could be a business sponsor. A lot of, we have some students that their parents have a business and a business sponsoring, that's fine too. So business might be sponsoring half of it, and it could be from personal finances half of it. As soon as the cumulative amount is $65,000, then it's fine, okay? So just be clear that it doesn't have to be on one account. Just to recap, passport, education, English knowledge, academic, IELTS academic 6.0, that's what we need, okay? Now, don't confuse it with the US program, because for US program, you don't need IELTS academic. You can have IELTS general, you can have TOEFL, TOEIC. The US has different requirements, so don't confuse that. So make sure that to double check, make sure you go to the website and the program outline for FPAP-C program, and make sure you understand it. All right, phase 2, once you get a candidate, CPL and CFI training, and that's the actual core flight training part. It takes about 18 months. It takes place at Toronto Airways in Oshawa, which is accredited by Transport Canada. You train on C-172, Cessna 172, Piper 44 Seminole, and Seneca. Now, Seneca specifically for Indian students, because Seminole, to some reason, we don't know why, isn't recognized in India as an airplane. So we just got one separate airplane for specific multi-engine training for Indian applicants. Of course, we fly all year round. Just because Canada is a cold country doesn't mean that we stop flying in winter. Not at all. In fact, propeller aircraft have better performance. They perform better in winter. So we got flying all year round. The only time we don't fly is when we have precipitation, we have snow, it's actively snowing, snowstorms and stuff like that. But otherwise, just cold weather, it's nice days like that, no problem at all. So we certainly do that. Well, Toronto Airways, let's talk about the flight center. It's, as you can see, it's located only 50 minutes drive from Toronto metropolitan area. It's Oshawa Municipal Airport. It's operating since 1963. Okay, so very safe, very great, fantastic record for operation safety. Trains hundreds of students per year, large fleet, and of course it's registered as Canadian Flight Academy. So Toronto Airways is the corporate name, and the doing business as is Canadian Flight Academy. It's kind of like AeroCadet is a DBA name of Wright Aerospace Group, so same thing. And you can see it's just on the lake, beautiful Lake Ontario, very close to US, probably about an hour and a half drive from Buffalo, New York. So, and Niagara Falls. So beautiful area, absolutely fantastic. It's Oshawa Municipal Airport. This is the hangar. I'm just gonna give you an idea of what it looks like inside. Right, classrooms, obviously the maintenance hangar. We have our own maintenance there, and just the lobby. Let's go inside, just stroll inside through the academy. This is dispatch building, big flight simulator. We got 2 ramps, ramp A and B, and the flight prep room. Okay, so once you guys finish with that flight training, which is gonna be fantastic, let's talk about the next phase, phase 3, CFI internship. CFI, of course, stands for Certified Flight Instructor, and this is when you're gonna be working. You're gonna start working as a flight instructor for the academy. So this is your gonna be initial experience working as a professional aviator after finishing your flight training, and this is the first stage of this program that's really, really important, because as I told you before, a lot of students, a lot of flight students, they get your licenses, they can commercial license or flight instructor license, and then they have no opportunity to work, so they got to go home, and they sit at home with 250 hours, and their licenses expire, right? The validity, the experience expires as well. But it's not going to happen to you, because what's going to happen is you're going to start working immediately as a flight instructor. You must have a valid student permit, and of course, you will have that with your visa. Otherwise, you won't be able to arrive in Canada in the first place. The internship is limited to the duration of training, which is 18 months. Demonstrate high professionalism, so no accidents, no incidents, no violations, and recommendation letter from chief pilot. And of course, you're going to get it if you have no accidents, no incidents, no violations, and you demonstrated a good professionalism. And by good professionals, that simply mean that you weren't late all the time to your classes. You weren't, slipping in. You're basically putting in good effort to achieve license. Of course, good level of accomplishments, and we don't want you to have more than one failed exam. Okay, so and you'll see that anywhere. Any airline that you apply for eventually will ask you, how many exams have you failed? And yes, it maybe even if it was 20 years ago, they're still going to ask you those questions. So, be prepared to ask about all the time, and your standards will be the same thing. Now, ICAO 5 or higher English skills, that's really important. Why is it important? Because you got to be instructing. You're not going to be sitting there listening and hopefully understanding. You will be actually teaching other people. So I want to make sure that your English has jumped from ICAO 4, which is a basic requirement for this, to ICAO 5 or higher, and you don't have an atrocious accent that prevents people from understanding what you're trying to say. Okay, so just remember, you're going to start teaching, and that's a safety job. All right, let's talk about flight instructor internship overview. Okay, so it's limited to 12 to 18 months. Normally it's 18 months. So normally what happens is you work for 12 months, and then you apply for, well, that's what most people do. They apply for Canadian PR, permanent residency, through the Canadian Experience class, which is required for that specific purpose. So you'll need to apply after 12 months only, and then you continue working for another 6 months, and then you get your permit. Okay, and that's going to be your ticket to start applying for the airlines. Flight instructor internship is paid at 30 Canadian dollars per flight hour. It's approximately 80 hours per month. Overall target is 1,500 hours. So if you do quick math, you'll see that you'll be able to achieve that without a problem. All that flight time is logged as pilot in command, PIC, which is really important. It's considered as part of the multi-crew environment. It's valued and desired by most airlines, and airlines allow CFIs to work as check airmen. So once you get an airline, your career is just going to keep growing and growing. It's going to be fantastic. All right, phase 4, Transport Canada, which is ICAO, again, ATP exam. Okay, so there's going to be an ATP exam must be taken in order to work for airlines in Canada. You have to make sure you have this experience right there, and you will have it once you finish your internship as flight instructor. Okay, and just remember that Transport Canada ATP is fully convertible to the GGCA and FAA, so you can actually convert that very easily. And it's going to be a full unrestricted one as well. Okay, first officer internship. Now, this is the part a lot of you are curious about. It's a phase 5A. Why is it 5A? We'll talk about 5B in a second. But 5A is for those who met all the requirements that require everything that all the standards require have been met, and are able to proceed through that. That's subject to approval by the CEC. CEC's Canadian Experience class. You guys can go to our website, AeroCadet.com, and click on the program outline, and you can read about it. It's a legitimate program that allows students that study in Canada and worked in Canada as interns following the 12 months to apply for permanent residency. And of course, with a permanent residency, you'll be able to apply for employment working for an airline. So that's the whole point of the program, to advance to the next stage, and so you guys can work for an airline. And of course, there's lots of airlines that will be able to hire you. Just a quick list right there. It's subject to full ATP, and you, of course, need to pass the interviews. So all the airlines have their own interviews. We cannot sort of get you through without interview. They will ask you questions, but interviews are fairly easy. It's just a panel going to be asking you some technical questions and personal questions like the HR, the human resources. Expected pay, the initial expected pay during that phase is between $2,500 to $3,500, and type rating paid by the airline 100%. So you don't have to spend any money for type rating. Okay. Now, those of you who do not qualify for that to some reason, maybe an accident, incident, something else happened, they get advanced to the next stage. Just Canadian regional jet. There's just an example of aircraft you can be flying. For those who don't know, the CRJ is this aircraft right there. It's actually manufactured in Montreal, Canada. And it's the most popular regional jet in Canada. So you can be flying that as an internship. Now, those of you who could not meet the requirements of this program or their Canadian experience class PR was rejected for some reason, maybe some criminal history or something, we don't know, you can advance to phase 5B. That's a safety net. Okay, so those of you who cannot get the 5A can go to 5B, and that's a ferry pilot internship in Hong Kong. Now you also have to have full ATP, so you will have it after completion of your internship as a flight instructor. Now but it's not a great option. Okay, so you'll still get a lot of flight time, but it's not going to be on the jet. So you still will be employable, but it's just not going to be as competitive as having someone with jet experience. So that's an option with Global Air, and again, it's a safety net option. It's not the primary option, but it's really a lot of fun. You'll be able to do it for a couple of years, and there's just some pictures of guys ferrying different types of aircraft. So that's actually one of the students is from Kazan, I think, in Russia. So ferrying a lot of great aircraft. Phase 6, permanent airline employment placement. You can see those guys from Emirates. And normally when you go to Emirates, you normally start to fly Dubai and then continue further. And of course, it's not limited to that. Again, you can go to whatever airline you want. A lot of airlines are hiring, and we're just going to talk about just a second about what airlines are hiring. Those are the airlines that would be interested in hiring you as a contract pilot. And those are just the main airlines. Of course, a lot more. But Emirates, Fly-Dubai, Qatar, AirAsia, NA. NA is actually all Nippon Airlines in Japan. People think that Japanese don't hire contract pilots. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's a lot of people work for ANA, especially in cargo, and it pays really well. Cathay Pacific, of course, Hong Kong Airlines. Now, folks, once you go to AeroCadet.com and just explore our website, we have a lot of information on this website. This is the link, aerocadetcom/ATPL-Canada.html, or just go to aerocadet.com, go to programs and courses right here, and you'll see that program from the drop-down list. So it's very easy. It actually explains you exactly what I told you right now, sort of how the program works phase by phase, et cetera, et cetera. All right, folks, so this is a time that you can ask me questions. You can unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask questions. We're going to do that for probably about 35 minutes and terminate after that. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So Russ, this is Vipul. So a quick question. I know you explained about the FPAP India program. Mm-hmm. What about the FPAP Canada program, right? For people who are like permanent residents of Canada. So how does that differ from this one?
Okay, so the question is, what's the difference between FPAP Indian program and Canadian program?
Yep, correct.
Okay, so this is the seminar specifically for Canadian program, not the Indian. The Indian program, we're going to have seminar in 2 days on 30th, and we conduct that together with Hercules Aviation in Harderblatt. So the difference is very simple. If you are from India, it is very advisable you take you consider doing the Indian program specifically in Canada. Why? Because Canadian consulate is not likely to issue a visa because they think you're going to stay there. And the chances are you are going to stay there, right? So what we want to make sure is that you get through the DGCA ground school to get the proof that you're actually planning to come back to India and convert your license. And indeed, we want you to come back to India and convert your license. So you can then continue seeking employment in the Indian market. But you don't have to do that. Okay, what's important is that you can apply for the Canadian program all day long, but if you're not going to get a visa, that's pointless, right? So the full professional airline pilot program in India specifically allows you to get a Canadian visa in a lot faster, streamlined manner. okay? And it provides you with the tools to ensure that you have the documents that are required to get that visa, okay? So it's just basically optimized. It's the same program as full professional airline pilot program Canada, but optimized for the Indian applicants, okay? And if you want to join a seminar in a couple of days, a webinar in a couple of days, we'll be able to explain in more detail how that differs from the Canadian, just the FPAP-C, okay?
Yeah, because, no, I asked that question because I actually have a Canada visa, so that allows me to, you know, live and work in Canada. So that's why.
Okay, so if you already have it, then then I suppose you can join directly. Are you planning to stay in Canada, or are you planning to go back to India after completion?
Planning to stay in Canada.
Okay. All right. Well, the best thing to do, just email me, and I'll email it to you my opinion about what you can or cannot do. But yes, if you already have current PR in Canada, you might as well just take that program, and you'll be fine.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Anyone else got any questions? No? Okay. Well, that's good. Well, if you got no questions, that means everything is clear, or it also means that nothing is clear. So if you, hopefully everything was clear. If you do have questions, please go ahead and email me at ross@aerocadet.com. Go to website aerocadet.com and explore it. Check out all the points, and you can go program phase by phase. A lot of very useful links there about the Canadian Experience class and how it works with obtaining the PR in Canada once you finish with it. And we basically right now the flight center is not operating due to quarantine, but it will start operating approximately mid-June. Okay. So obviously, if you want to start your enrollment, it's a good time to start it right now, because it takes about 2 to 3 months to get all the paperwork ready for arrival. So you can go to website aerocadet.com, click enroll, and then enrollment application will give you a bunch of options. You can select what program you're enrolling into, and you'll be able to upload the documents and everything else. Some documents are missing. We'll send you an email requesting those documents. So that shouldn't be a problem. All right, guys. Any other questions? I give you just about a minute maybe to figure out if any other questions at all.
There's another question on the FPAP Canada program.
Yeah.
So the IELTS, will the general IELTS score of like 8 or so work, or do I need to like specifically give the IELTS academic version?
Okay, so you will need to get IELTS academic. Okay, it cannot be general. They will not accept you with general. It has to be academic, because that's just the requirement. That's actually starting January 1st. That's a requirement for that program, academic only. So it has to be IELTS academic, and you'll see that it has scores and different parameters like reading, comprehension, stuff like that. Yeah. So each parameter cannot score lower than 5.5, and the general overall score should be 6 or higher. Okay.
Got you. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, guys. Any other questions at all?
I think there is a question for you on chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Morning, sir. This is B. I'm speaking you from India, okay. And I'm likely to start my DGCA program here in India, in New Delhi, by the next month, because I'm having more time in here. Due to the COVID-19 situations, I can't do my next further steps in joining the college. But I'm having a question that I'm running my own business here in India. So I'm having every paperwork set for seriously that I will be back in India once I completed my my program in Canada. Because I'm looking forward to joining the Canadian program, because the Indian program I could do it here in India itself. But as I see that your program list is very extended, and it is very more clear for me to do this program. So is it any, do I have any, do I have any probability to join your college, to join the Canadian program? As I'm an Indian, I wish to do the Canadian program. Obviously, I'm having all the paperwork set that I will be back to India once I complete my program. So is there any possibility, sir? I would like to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do whatever you want. We don't restrict you. We don't tell you, okay, if you're in India, you must go through the Indian program. You can do whatever you want. It's up to you. We just can advise you that if you are applying for, let's say, if you're going to be applying for Canadian visa, it will be easier to go through Indian program because we pretty much guarantee that you're going to get it. Otherwise, the chances of getting Canadian visa if you're Indian applicant without going through Indian program are kind of lower. They're actually much lower than, I'd probably say about 20% or something like that. So, versus 85, 90% if you go through the Indian program. So we would suggest that you do that. I told you the best thing to do, just email me, russ@aerocadet.com, and I'll send you exactly the email we actually have prepared, which compares the programs, and just so you can get a breakdown of the benefits of one program versus another. Okay, and then you can make a decision. Okay, but you absolutely can enroll if you want. You can enroll into FPAP-C without going through FPAP-IND if you're confident that you have you won't have any problems with the Canadian visa. Okay, does it make sense?
Yes, sir. I'm okay with that. I got you.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, looks like no one else got any questions. If you guys do have questions, you can always email them to me at russ@aerocadet.com. I'll be happy to answer them. I normally reply within 24 hours, but normally, really, I reply within a couple hours. Especially right now, we got a lot of free time. Most airline pilots got a lot of free time. I am actually working a full schedule in June, but I was off this month specifically for COVID-19, and I actually have a lot more free time until the end of this month to answer any questions. So if you have any questions after completion of that session, go ahead and email me at russ@aerocadet.com. You can see the website right behind me, AeroCadet.com, and we'll be able to answer all your questions. The next seminar for Indian guys, I guess from India, again, it's going to be approximately about the same time, 1300 UTC, and it's going to be with me and our Indian partners, Hercules Aviation, for the FPAP-C program. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Have a great one, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully, we'll see you here very soon indeed. Have a great, the rest of the great evening. Okay.